Okay. Hello out there in video land. We are continuing with our discussion of Hamlet, and we're beginning today. The mousetrap section is over, and we begin today with an interaction between Hamlet and um, the two guys whose names I temporarily forgot. So
Rosencrantz and Guildenstern,
there you go.
or
Thank you.
Guildenstern and Rosencrantz, if you prefer.
There you go. Okay. That being said, I will call up my. Okay. So, did anybody not get to read last time?
I wasn't here.
Okay. So, why don't you, Bill, you know where we are? We're at the part enter Rosencrantz and Guildenstern. Guildenstern, good my lord, vouchsafe me a word with you.
Yeah, I got it.
Okay. Read away till you feel like it's time to stop. Yeah.
Guildenstern. Guildenstern. Good my lord, vouchsafe me a word with you. Hamlet, sir, a whole history.
Yep.
Guildenstern. The king, sir. Hamlet. Aye, sir, what of him? Guildenstern. Is in his retirement marvelous distempered. Hamlet. With drink, sir? Guildenstern. No, my lord, rather with choler. Hamlet. Your wisdom should show itself more richer to signify this to his doctor, for me to put him in his purgation would perhaps plunge him into far more choler. Guildenstern. Good my lord, put your discourse into some frame and start not so wildly from my affair. Hamlet. I am tame, sir. Pronounce. Guildenstern. The queen, your mother, in most great affliction of spirit, hath sent me to you. Hamlet. You are welcome. Guildenstern. Nay, my good lord, this courtesy is not of the right breed. If it shall please you to make me a wholesome answer, I will do your mother's commandment. If not, your pardon, and my return shall be the end of my business. Hamlet. Sir, I cannot. Guildenstern. What, my lord? Hamlet. Make you a wholesome answer. My wit's diseased. But, sir, such answer as I can make, you shall command, or rather, as you say, my mother. Therefore, no more, but to the matter. My mother, you say? Rosencrantz. Then thus she says, your behavior hath struck her into amazement and admiration. Hamlet. Oh, wonderful son that can so astonish a mother. But is there no sequel at the heels of this mother's admiration? Impart. Rosencrantz. She desires to speak with you in her closet ere you go to bed. Hamlet. We shall obey. Were she 10 times our mother? Have you any further trade with us? Rosencrantz. My lord, you once did love me. Hamlet. So I do still by these pickers and stealers. Rosencrantz. Good my lord, what is your cause of distemper? You do surely bar the door upon your own liberty if you deny your griefs to your friend. Hamlet. Sir, I lack advancement. Rosencrantz. How can that be when you have the voice of the king himself for your succession in Denmark? Hamlet. Aye, sir, but while the grass grows, the proverb is something musty. Enter players with recorders. Oh, the recorders. Let me see one to withdraw with you. Why do you go about to recover the wind of me as if you would drive me into a toil? Guildenstern. Oh, my lord, if my duty be too bold, my love is too unmannerly. Hamlet. I do not well understand that. Will you play upon this pipe? Guildenstern. My lord, I cannot. Hamlet. I pray you. Guildenstern. Believe me, I cannot. Hamlet. I do beseech you. Guildenstern. I know no touch of it, my lord. Hamlet. 'Tis as easy as lying. Govern these ventages with your fingers and thumb. Give it breath with your mouth, and it will discourse most eloquent music. Look you, these are the stops. Guildenstern. But these cannot I command to any utterance of harmony. I have not the skill. Hamlet. Why, look you now, how unworthy a thing you make of me. You would play upon me. You would seem to know my stops. You would pluck out the heart of my mystery. You would sound me from my lowest note to the top of my compass. And there is much music, excellent voice in this little organ, yet cannot you make it speak. Blood, do you think I am easier to be played on than a pipe? Call me what instrument you will, though you can fret me, yet you cannot play upon me. Next, please.
Okay, do we want to go to a next reader or do we want to take a look at this?
It's worth looking at, I guess.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Okay. I think this is a marvelously sophisticated piece of comic relief.
It's comic, but it's also very serious. I mean, it's
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
he obviously does not think much of Rosencrantz and Guildenstern. I mean, they're kind of, to my mind, kind of foppish courtiers who, they're there to do the bidding of the queen or whoever
Mm-hmm.
whoever will.
I think, he realizes that they're just playing him like a fiddle. So
Well, they're
he's
trying
just having a laugh.
Yeah, yeah.
But it turns out they can't even play him
Mhm.
because he knows. And he
Yeah.
is laughing at them like when they're talking about the king and there's in his retirement marvelously distempered. With drink, sir? No, my lord, rather with colour. And then he laughs at them like saying, well, you should be really talking to a doctor and not me.
Right, right.
Because I only aggravate him more.
This is all post the players and the play that they've witnessed. And so obviously Claudius now knows that Hamlet really knows. Hamlet knows what he's done. And Gertrude also knows that Hamlet knows. I think she may not, but she's certainly upset by it all.
Yeah. If she knew the details. I mean, this is the
Right.
marvelous ambiguity here that at least so far we are left wondering how much was Gertrude involved.
Yeah.
I mean, we know that just simply the marriage so soon after the death of Hamlet Senior is a little odd for the times.
Well, it might not have been, except in Hamlet's eyes, in that leaving Denmark without a king, especially in time of uncertainty with Norway and the possibility of a war, it may have been politic for her to take a husband who could lead the troops and take things
So
in.
yeah, that actually leads to an interesting question, which at least I need clarified. So Hamlet Senior is dead, and that leaves the Queen at the head of the government.
Yeah, I think it leaves the Queen. Queens certainly did rule Denmark historically, so they could succeed. It is possible. I mean, Hamlet is obviously the heir apparent to succeed his father, but it might be that Gertrude is in some way a custodial placeholder, or she is somehow ruling in Hamlet's stead as his. I don't know.
So it's like a regency then, Bill?
It might be a regency, but it's also possible that she would have had the ability to rule. I'm not sure what Shakespeare's intention is in this regard. And there's no reason to assume that Shakespeare certainly did not follow history exactly. I mean, he took a lot of liberties with the history of everything he wrote about. So there's no reason to assume that he got that part correct, that, Gertrude. But Gertrude, in terms of my reading of history, Queen certainly ruled Denmark at various periods of time, and were eligible to succeed their husband as a ruler.
So Hamlet is a student, a university student.
Yeah.
So what age is he? He certainly.
Yeah.
He could be late teens, early 20s.
So he would have been old enough to take over, wouldn't he?
I would think so.
Okay.
Yeah, I would think so.
But then we wouldn't have had Hamlet, yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
But even if he was younger, there would probably be a regency to rule until he came of age, if his mother was also.
Yeah.
Yes, if he was younger, I don't, who knows what the age was at that time, but yes, that's happened. But we got, just for discussion's sake, it's a rather interesting topic to me right now, because so if Gertrude, by the death of her husband, became the head of the government, and if there was a prejudice in Denmark at the time that women leaders were weak and could not lead successful military campaigns, then we have a reason, as Bill pointed out, of why the marriage would be so hasty. Though there's nothing in Shakespeare that mentions that at all. It's just mentioned that the marriage seemed very hasty.
And it seemed particularly hasty to Hamlet. I mean, which I think raised his suspicions, which again adds there's a certain amount of ambiguity in the entire play, and that is all of this happening in Hamlet's mind. I mean, obviously, I don't believe in ghosts, but how would he have known about the poisoning? If perhaps it was revealed in a dream, or perhaps it's just his conjecture. It's just his feeling that something's wrong. His father died mysteriously. His mother marries very soon after. He's doesn't quite trust his uncle, but does he concoct all of this, or is there some truth to it that is revealed to Hamlet in various ways, supernatural or otherwise?
And he never.
Isn't Shakespeare? Sorry, Jan, please go ahead.
Go ahead.
Sorry, Kathleen, I thought across it.
That's all right. Oh, I was just going to say, but Hamlet never says, "But I should be the king now."
He never says that.
No, but he understands that he will be the king, and that's part of the speech that Ophelia makes. She points out to him that you're going to be king. When he's going to be king is another story. I mean, it's sort of like, we have the example in modern times of Elizabeth II and what's his face?
Charles.
Philip, yeah.
Charles.
Yeah, no,
Well,
Philip.
he's the husband.
I mean Philip, though. I mean, Philip was the king, but he wasn't the king, really.
No, he was king consort. Really.
He was king consort.
Prince Philip.
So it's possible that Claudius is king consort and not actually king. I don't know, but I think it's more. I think it's it's more likely that he's king now.
Isn't Shakespeare just doing this for the purposes of plot? He's giving us a dead, we imagine, poisoned king. He's giving us the wife who was remarried in haste. So here's the set, and we take it from there. I think we could get hung up on the whys and wherefores of it.
Right.
I don't add anything to our understanding.
Yeah,
Hmm.
well, and of course that's possible, but I think there's still issues to explore. I am very much a novice at this, the reading and the discussion of William Shakespeare, but I did watch a couple of BBC things recently at the recommendation of Joe Kenny. It's a four-part thing by Michael Wood. And Michael Wood is pointing out the politics in England as Shakespeare
Opening
is
the door.
coming of age. And it's
Okay.
it to me is rather astonishing. It was a very political age, and there were spies everywhere, and there were troops of the Queen's players who were going around the countryside using drama as a way to propagandize the population.
Look
And
at the
that,
time of Henry VIII and all that he was doing to try and create a successor, and what he did. And this is not drama at all. This is real historical fact. He gets
Mhm.
married, whatever it is, 6 or 8 times, and he's still struggling to find a son after all that time. I think he eventually does produce, or somebody produces for him. But
Mhm.
you're right
Well,
about
no,
spies and so on at that time.
but
It
yeah,
was very political.
but then Elizabeth I does succeed him and become queen
She does.
Eventually.
After
eventually.
Mary.
Eventually, yeah, after Mary.
Yeah.
Yeah, eventually, and that the big political topic, or one of the big political topics, becomes Protestants versus Catholics.
Well, that's Henry VIII who
After
creates.
Henry, yeah, with the
Yeah,
rest.
Yeah, and well, but Elizabeth apparently is quite successful in establishing a widespread spy system that is everywhere, taking notes and occasionally taking prisoners. And at
Taking
least
heads.
according to the Michael Wood history, um, um, William Shakespeare's father and his mother's family were all of the old faith, namely Catholics.
But of course, when Mary took over from Henry, she
Yeah,
reimposed Catholicism, and it wasn't until Elizabeth came in that she sort of rewound all of that in
right,
favor of Protestants.
yeah.
right.
The only point that I'm trying to make is that there was a lot of heavy duty politics going on,
Absolutely.
and that
Yeah.
over time, Shakespeare, who started acting through the Queen's players, which were propagandists, he started writing plays, and of course had to be in the younger years very careful about what he wrote about, but he was trying to explore this whole political world. So,
Yeah. No, you're right.
A loose end from about 5 minutes ago. Hamlet's age. All that the play gives us is in the gravedigger's scene. One gravedigger says, I've been gravedigger since old Hamlet defeated old Fortinbras. And by the way, that was when young Hamlet was born. And then later on in the scene, he said, I've been here, gravedigger, sexton, and boy for 30 years. That's the only indication that the play gives us about Hamlet's age. Now, you could argue that Hamlet is behaving more like the age range you gave, 8 to 21, than a more settled 30-year-old. So we're getting contradictory indications. We're getting Hamlet's actions on one side, and then we're getting this one, passing reference in the gravedigger's scene on the other. And I think it's like the Bloom stuff yesterday, Bill. I think it's like, who's Bloom? I don't think you can resolve it.
Yeah, you can question whether the gravedigger is a reliable witness or if he's remembering, he's an old senile guy by now.
Yeah.
Is he remembering correctly?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
the other
yeah.
thing also, if you're talking about the 30 years, I just went back there. The player king said, if they are supposed to be Claudius, he says full 30 times, so that he's married 30 years. So if he's supposed to be Claudius, so they were married 30 years. No, he's not Claudius, sorry. He's the old Hamlet. When he's
Right,
talking
okay.
with his wife.
Hamlet
So he's
Senior.
talking about 30 years being married as well. At the very start. Full 30 times Toby's gone round Neptune's salt wash.
Mm-hmm. Well, I
And
think
30,000
that all,
moons with buried sheep.
Mhm. I think that all these
So-
doubts are actually part of in a sense, part of the purpose of the plays of this
Well,
play.
I think that's a good point, Duncan. I mean, so how come everybody can see the ghost in the first part, but when we get to the Queen's bedroom, she thinks Hamlet's
Yeah.
lost his mind because only Hamlet can see the ghost. There's another contradiction.
Mm-hmm. Well, the final part of what I was going to say is that I think
Sorry for interrupting.
that that Shakespeare, and this is I'm going way too far here, but Shakespeare wants to create doubt in the viewer. That he wants to give us the Hamlet experience.
Except the audience sees the ghost. And so
Mhm.
the ghost is real as far as the audience is concerned. It's Hamlet himself who has pledged Horatio and the soldiers not to reveal the appearance of the ghost. So
Okay.
they've kept their word to Hamlet. They're not going to say anything about there being a ghost. Hamlet keeps that secret to himself, which is why Gertrude thinks he might be crazy if he thinks he's seeing
No,
ghosts, because no one else will corroborate it because he's told them not to.
yeah, but what Dave is talking about is that later on, when they're in Gertrude's chamber, Hamlet the younger can see Hamlet the ghost, but she can't.
But she can't.
And that was it.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's what you're talking about, Dave.
It is, Anne, and actually, just to pick up on that point, Anne, I guess it would depend on the director's interpretation as to whether the director has the ghost waltz onto the stage in the closet scene, or doesn't have the ghost waltz onto the stage. And that would certainly change our understanding of the play depending on what you can see as an audience, wouldn't it?
Well, if you remember the old Topper movies and television series, they could appear to whoever they wanted to. So the ghost could appear to Hamlet and keep himself hidden from Gertrude.
Right.
That's
Mhm.
that's within the realm of
Right.
ghostly.
Ghostly options, ghostly volition.
Yeah, right.
Do we know when Shakespeare was writing this, say, on his early drafts, the folios, did he give acting notes or guiding notes for directors?
There's no staging at
No.
all in any of the early manuscripts. It was all, they would have all, and in fact, the first folio was cobbled together from various individual character. Each actor would have his own role written out. There was no actual script written out per se that they would all see. Hamlet had his lines, Claudius had his lines. Each actor would have been given the lines, and then later on, they were assembled into the first folio, into a collection of actual plays.
So, Bill, do you know if that's because that we don't have a complete version of the play from the get-go, that you just had these actors' parts? Is it because Shakespeare was concerned that people would steal the play and then use it themselves?
I think that was one of the concerns. Yeah, there was a great deal of plagiarism, and if Hamlet had a good play, he certainly wouldn't want someone to be able to just copy it and perform it.
Okay.
So that's a possibility.
Okay. That's interesting.
But it was also in terms of economics, less expensive to print out individual parts
Yes.
than print out multiple copies of the entire play.
Right.
Mhm.
And it also it left things into the interpretation of the actors and the director and the designers and the lighting and all that stuff to play with it as they would.
Hmm.
That's a good point. I'd never thought about the cost factor, but yeah, they were making paper out of old rags in those days, as opposed to out of wood pulp. I think is that
Yeah.
correct? And so
Yeah.
it'd be expensive.
Or on vellum if they were using vellum. But if they were printed on paper, it would be expensive at that time. And if you're just an upstart theater company, you would be cutting corners wherever you could in terms of expense.
Right. And at that particular time, and even later, plays were considered pretty trashy, low-class entertainment. Even to the point that when the first folio was offered to Oxford University later, they refused it. They turned it down. They said, "We don't deal in that trash," which is pretty
Oh,
astounding.
God.
There were
Absolutely.
Yeah, it was only much later that plays of any sort gained any respect, to where, the manuscripts were worth something. And I have a feeling that it was probably, it might be the tradition in play acting at that time that that's just the way they did things, you know, and that actually, maybe even the director or the playwright kind of liked the fact that each actor had their lines and didn't quite know what the other actors were going to say. I mean, I could see that bringing out a certain verve in the whole thing, at least for the early.
They would know their cues, but that's about all they would know. They wouldn't necessarily know the rest of the story, which is an interesting idea. But yeah, it's a fledgling art form. It's a new art form, and they're experimenting with it.
Mhm.
it makes me think back to our reading of Dylan Thomas's Under Milkwood, and we have the situation where he's finishing the play as the players are already on stage and handing them the sheets of paper.
Yeah.
So they certainly didn't know what was happening with each other.
Right.
I'm not suggesting Shakespeare was like that, but
Mhm.
it just reminded me of that.
Mm. So in the scene with Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, basically between Hamlet and Guildenstern, I just find it overall really interesting of how Hamlet plays Guildenstern. He's actually doing to Guildenstern what he tells Guildenstern that Guildenstern can't do to him, is how I see it. He very subtly shifts the whole tone of the conversation. It starts being kind of light and jokey, and then he kind of gets it more and more serious, and has apparently decided to announce to Rosencrantz and Guildenstern that he's very suspicious of the king and the queen.
I don't know if that's clear. I don't know that they would
What's
have
that?
picked up on that at all. I think he's playing with him, he's toying with him, but then he gets really serious and says, "Don't think you can play me.
Mm-hmm.
You can't play this little recorder. You're not about to play me, buddy. I,
Mm-hmm.
I got your number." So, he's all business, but it doesn't have much to do with any suspicion of the king and queen. I
He's
don't
keeping
think.
them on the back foot, isn't he?
Yeah.
Say that again, Donna.
He's keeping them on the back foot. He's, as Bill says, he's playing with them. One moment he's being funny, supposedly. Next moment he's being extremely serious, and they're not sure how to take him.
Right.
It's the same with Polonius. Look at that cloud. It looks like a camel.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
then, Polonius thinks he's being cute by playing along, and then I don't know, more like a whale. Oh, really? Yeah, a whale. Hamlet's really in control
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
having his laugh at their expense.
Right. Right. So maybe we should proceed onward, and perhaps the next reader should be Katrina.
Duncan, just before we do, can I ask, is there any sense of kind of moral ambiguity in what we just read? Could you make a case for the fact that Rosencrantz and Guildenstern haven't been so thoroughly corrupted by the king that they're still, at least in part, motivated by concern for their friends' welfare? Or at this point, have they completely drunk the Kool-Aid and they're totally in the king's control? Like,
I
is
think.
anybody seeing moral ambiguity here?
Oh, I think they're genuinely still consider themselves Hamlet's friends and are concerned about him. They think he might be a little mad, and that I don't think they're under the king's control by any means, or Gertrude's. They don't know anything. I mean, the king's not going to confide in them. He's going to tell them what he wants them to do. And Gertrude has asked them to come and see Hamlet and tell him that she's concerned about him and wants to see him in privately. And that's all they're doing. So yeah, I don't think there's any reason to suspect them at this point, or their motivations. They're still minor courtiers under everybody's command, but they are concerned for Hamlet, I think, more than trying to manipulate him in any way. I mean, go ahead.
I was just going to say, although in the last speech, Hamlet seems to feel that they've turned on him, that they're using him.
Well, no, I think,
Last speech.
yeah, I think, but yeah, I don't think that last speech you can read it. You could read a little too much into it, I think. I think it's just he doesn't like the fact that they're so quick to do his mother's bidding and accept whatever her ideas are about him.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
They're being a little disingenuous. They're not being absolutely honest. They don't come right out and say, "Hey, Hamlet, we're worried about you." They're just saying, they say, "Well, we're here because the Queen sent us here to ask you, to say this and that. And your father's kind of upset." And
Right.
But
See, it
they
is
don't.
ambiguous so far as they don't know what Hamlet knows.
right.
That's what the problem is. So when the king and queen asked them to check Hamlet out, they believe him to be honest, while Hamlet knows that they're just looking for information on him. So
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they
they
don't
are
seem to
probably
be.
being genuine without realizing.
They seem, according to the Guildenstern's words, they know the king is angry.
Mm.
They know that it might have something to do with the play, but they don't seem to have figured out, why that play would make the king angry. And they're not, so they're only concerned with the fact that that the king is angry, and that Hamlet has something to do with it.
Yeah.
And the queen is upset, but they don't seem to have risen. They didn't understand any of the reasons why, according to what they've said.
Mm-hmm.
So, Donna, you have a different name today. What's up with that?
It's my son's name. I'm coming to you from County Kerry.
Ah, okay. Got it.
You may recall a child appeared the last time I came from County Kerry. So she was coming along again to know, could she say hello? So I said, no, we'll wait for the next time.
Got it. Okay. So are we ready to proceed onward with Polonius, and then
Yep.
I think we go into the Gertrude bedroom scene. So Katrina, you'll have to turn on your microphone.
So we are under Polonius.
Yeah.
God bless you, sir. Polonius. My lord, the queen would speak with you, and presently. Hamlet. Do you see yonder cloud that's almost in the shape of a camel? Polonius. By the mass, and 'tis like a camel indeed. Hamlet. Methinks it's like a weasel. Polonius. It is backed like a weasel, or like a Hamlet, or like a whale. Polonius. Very like a whale. Hamlet. Then I will come to my mother by and by. Aside. They fool me to the top of my bent. I will come by and by. Polonius. I will say so. Exit Polonius. Hamlet. By and by is easily said. Leave me, friends. Exeunt all but Hamlet. 'Tis now the very witching time of night when churchyards yawn and hell itself breathes out contagion to this world. Now could I drink hot blood and do such bitter business as the day would quake to look on. Soft now to my mother, O heart, lose not thy nature. Let not ever the soul of Nero enter this firm bosom. Let me be cruel, not unnatural. I will speak daggers to her, but use none. My tongue and soul in this be hypocrites. How in my words soever she be shent, to give them seals never my soul consent. Should we go on?
We probably should take a look at that.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
We should
This
probably
thing
take a
about
look
the
at-
clouds is funny because it's set in the hall, so there's no clouds.
It's interesting. That is very interesting.
I just went back to double check to see where the scene is. It says,
That is very interesting.
There may have been a window, though.
oh, maybe.
I
Gosh.
mean,
I
yeah, I
think
mean,
you
there
should
were.
write a line to Shakespeare about that and tell him to correct it in the next.
No, this is where Hamlet, who's always been playing Guildenstern, is still in that same playful mood,
And Polonius,
and does it to Polonius.
yeah, Polonius goes along with, maybe there is no window, but Polonius
Yeah, he just goes along with him.
Yeah.
I'm guessing.
Oh yeah, whatever you say.
It's fun to look at it both ways. I suspect there's a window, but
He's just
it could be even more of a, it could be fun to think.
Polonius is just probably he'd say anything just to get him to come to Gertrude's chamber, to his mother's chamber.
Yeah. Polonius is a total servant.
Oh yeah.
Just taking it back to Joyce again in Ulysses, there's the cloud that shows up
The Bloom and Stevenson.
and then wanders around Dublin. It's an interesting thing that I think that Joyce picked up on from Hamlet, and Joyce/Stephen was so particularly focused on Hamlet at the time. But it wouldn't surprise me if Joyce didn't intentionally put the cloud in because of this cloud.
Mm-hmm. It was kind of fun. I like the fact that Hamlet remains in mood to toy with people.
Yeah.
And yet, and so sorry, it's not a yet. And at the same time that he's toying with people, that he's exerting control, he's very manic. In that speech that Katrina just, I could drink hot blood.
Well, he's convinced now
Yes.
of his uncle's guilt. He convinced
absolutely is. Yes.
that what he witnessed when the mime show and then the play went on, what he saw in his uncle and his uncle's reaction, he's absolutely dead certain that Claudius killed his father.
That's right.
But as per his father's instructions, he's not going to take any revenge on his mother.
Glory to God.
So, I mean, Nero killed his mother. He's not going to kill his own mother. He's not going to, what does he say?
Speak daggers, but use none.
But use none. Exactly, right. he wants it out. He wants to have it out with her. He wants to hear her story and then leave her to God for punishment. But he definitely would like to have her confess to him.
He says I will speak daggers to her, so he's going to be pretty strong.
Yeah.
But use none.
Right.
Didn't I'm checking something here. Didn't Neera's mother kill her husband?
I think you're right. I think it's a
Would
similar.
it be something like that?
There
Yeah, I'm
is
looking at
I think
here.
there's a similarity in terms of Gertrude
Of
and
that with his own mother. Is he checking her?
yeah.
He put his own mother to death, says my notes.
He killed her, but she had already killed her husband.
Yeah.
And I'm looking
Oh,
at
I
here,
see.
and she married the Emperor Claudius.
Right.
That's the one
Right.
with the stutter.
Oh,
No. So could that be the reference there to
Mhm.
huh.
So let me point out that at this particular time, I think it's getting that same witching hour as when Hamlet Sr. appeared to Hamlet Jr.
Right.
I
Which
think the witching time is midnight, isn't it?
I think so. Well,
Yeah.
in
suppose,
my pop
would be
culture
late,
way, I think so.
Yes.
Yeah.
and isn't that the same time that the ghost first appears, right around the midnight?
Yeah.
I think so. Mhm.
Yeah. So it's no surprise that he's going to turn up again. Or it shouldn't surprise us.
Mhm. But he is manic. I mean, he's been kind of twixt and tween. So he launched his experiment with the King's players. He got the information that he wanted, and so he's very stoked, and doubts are not part of his world for the moment.
And I just pasted into the chat an
Yeah, I
answer.
was looking at it there.
Okay, fair enough.
Mhm.
Yeah.
There it
Okay.
is. Thank you.
And yes, Donna, I believe it is the Claudius from Robert Graves's I, Claudius.
Hi, Claudius. Yeah.
I think that Claudius.
Oh,
Yeah.
Huh.
Great series, then.
Yeah. Yeah. Derek Jacobi.
Yes. Who actually, if memory serves, played Hamlet for the BBC production of the play. Am I right on that?
I'm sure he did. Yeah.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
So it's interesting that it's Claudius and Claudius.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
Probably not a coincidence.
Probably not. Never waste a good name.
Absolutely.
Use them to the utmost.
So the Claudius of I, Claudius was not particularly a villain in a sense that the name would the name would be in some way a signal for the audience that this is a bad guy. Like if
right.
I don't know.
Good point, Bill. He didn't call him Caligula.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Or Nero.
Yes.
Right.
But the Claudius from Robert Graves is not a bad guy, sure.
No, he's not.
I mean, he's been held back because of his difficulties.
Yeah.
But he's a very clever guy.
Oh yeah.
And circumstances bring him to become emperor.
Right.
As Dave points out, he didn't make it the full distance.
Okay, let's see. Witching hour, churchyards, hell itself, contagion, hot blood, bitter business these days. Now, soft now to my mother. Oh, nature,
Oh, heart.
lose not heart.
O heart, lose not thy nature.
Oh, heart, lose not
Yeah.
thy nature, but
Thy
let
nature.
not ever the soul of Nero enter this firm
Enter this
bosom.
firm bosom.
Let me be cruel, not unnatural. I like this, my tongue and soul in this be hypocrites.
Mhm.
Mm.
Okay. I think we're at Act 3, Scene 3, unless someone has another point we want to make about what was just read.
I think so.
Nope.
Nope. Okay. And so next reader is
I think I am. I think I am.
okay. You are. Yeah.
So we have the king kicking it off. I like him not, nor stands it safe with us to let his madness rage. Therefore prepare you. I your commission will forthwith dispatch, and he to England shall along with you. The terms of our estate may not endure hazard so near us as doth hourly grow out of his brows. Guildenstern. We will ourselves provide most holy and religious spirit is to keep these many bodies safe that live and feed upon your majesty. Rosencrantz. The single and peculiar life is bound with all the strength and armor of the mind to keep itself from annoyance, but much more that spirit upon whose weal depends and rests the lives of many. Excessive majesty dies not alone, but like a gulf does draw what's near it with it, or it is a massy wheel fixed on the summit of the highest mount, and whose huge spokes 10,000 lesser things are mortised and adjoined, which when it falls, each small annexment, petty consequence attends the boisterous ruin. Never alone did the king sigh, but with a general groan. King. Arm, I pray you, to this speedy voyage, for we will fetters put about this sphere, which now goes too free-footed. Rosencrantz, we will haste us. And so they leave, and Polonius enters. My lord, he's going to his mother's closet behind the arras. I'll convey myself to hear the process. I warrant she'll tax him home, and as you said, and wisely it was said, 'tis meet that some more audience than a mother, since nature makes them partial, should o'erhear the speech of vantage. Fare you well, my liege, I'll call upon you ere you go to bed, and tell you what I know. King, thanks, my lord. You know, I think I would stop there because the second part is maybe something we'll want to talk about separately.
Okay.
Okay, could I just ask you there, when the king speaks first, correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought you said that hourly grow out of his brows.
Yes, is that what you have?
No,
I have
we have
lunacy,
lunacies.
which I think is way stronger.
Okay,
Yeah.
it is. It is indeed.
There are a couple of words that are different in your text than in mine.
It serves me right, Bill and Donna, for using a cheap edition that I bought as a high school student and have been too thrifty to replace.
We
Hey,
understand
you
the
are
trick, don't
of
we?
Scottish descent,
I
are you
am
not?
to the core.
Absolutely. Don't deny it.
Yes.
But doesn't the word lunacies fit in with what we're learning about Hamlet and how he's playing the players by pretending to be bad,
Mhm.
and thus concealing himself from his real purpose, which
Mhm.
is to find out who's guilty and who's not.
Mhm. So this whole thing of Rosencrantz sketching the role of the king is quite interesting, particularly the one that goes, the cease of majesty dies not alone, but like a gulf does draw. What's near it with it? It is a massy wheel fixed on the summit of the highest mount, of whose huge spokes 10,000 lesser things. are mortized and adjoined.
I think it's really interesting, because what we've seen in the play largely has been playing out as a personal family quarrel, and I think Shakespeare at this point paints it, reminds us that this is painted on a larger canvas here, folks. This is not just about a kid who's unhappy that his dad has been murdered and his mom has married the murderer. I mean, that's pretty bad, but there are huge consequences for a whole lot of people beyond this family because of the position that the murderer holds.
Mm-hmm. There is
I
that.
suppose
but-
at that time there was probably you were either in favor or you weren't. So by the king dying, that would affect a lot of people.
Well, the
Is that what
king's
they're talking about there?
decisions affect a lot
Decisions,
of
yeah.
people, right? And the king's mood
And I'm pretty
affects a lot of people.
Right. I mean, and we see this even today. So, for instance, I think it was about 6 months ago, our prime minister and his wife separated. She basically left him. And there was a concern. I mean, I think delicately placed. People are much more sensitive about this now. So, how is this going to affect his running of the country as he's trying to work through, this personal domestic difficulty that's beset him?
Well, I'm sure that he even used that, assuming what you said, his wife left him.
Essentially, it turns out that that's what happened. They just said they'd separate.
So he probably told his wife that same thing. If you
Husband was
leave me
wearing
now
red
and make it public, it's going to make it real hard for me
Right.
to govern. But also on going back to the personal level, this is telling us something about Rosencrantz, maybe. And I don't think he's just flattering the king. But Rosencrantz is kind of telling us why, even if he did suspect that Claudius had killed the former king, why he would hang tough with the present king.
Yeah, I think there's no reason to infer that Rosencrantz suspects anybody of anything or guilt. They don't know anything. They don't know the king's plans. They don't know what he's done. All they know is what they're told and what they observe. And he's bright enough to observe the fact that how things that affect the king affect everybody.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that's one reason why they're willing to do his bidding, whatever it is. He wants them to go on a voyage. Okay, we'll go. Of course we'll go. If it'll make you happy, it'll.
And then there's an arm you, he's saying this to Rosencrantz. The king is, arm you, I pray you, to this speedy voyage, for we will feathered fetters put upon this fear, which now goes too free-footed. I'm assuming that Rosencrantz and Guildenstern hear this. And then they say, we will haste us.
Yeah.
And I would just kind of circle back only slightly to this business about the state depending upon the king and so forth. Shakespeare's audience, I suspect, at that time would have been far more sensitive to that than we are, because they had seen Shakespeare's history plays, where which chronicled civil wars and so forth.
Right.
And so this would hit them hard. This would hit home.
Yeah.
And of
Well,
course,
and I mean, they're living it under a monarchy too. I mean, they're
this is
they
not
are a monarch who does not have a child bill. This is Elizabeth's time. So what's going to happen when old Lizzie kicks off, right?
Right. Yeah.
Well, they had just been through back and forth with lots of terror and bloodshed. This was not distant to their audience at all.
Right. And the same uncertainty. So Henry dies, and Edward VI is king until he's like 15 years of age. Then he dies. Then Mary takes over, who's Catholic, and they've got problems there. And then Elizabeth takes over, who's Protestant. So that's right. Your point's well taken, Duncan. They beyond Shakespeare's history plays. I mean, this would have cut them pretty deeply.
Yeah. Yeah. No, there was lots of recent stuff. I mean, this is a very poor example on my part, but it's what's at hand. You know, we had this movie, which I have not seen, this Civil War movie that is in the theaters right now, which, you know, I don't know the quality of the movie at all, and it may just be nonsense. But with all the recent discussion of civil wars and all the mass shootings and crazy political rhetoric, you know, this Civil War movie is, you know, it's hot stuff among a large part of the population.
I don't know anything about it, and I'm not interested. But so I don't know.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
only get it through a little bit of news leaking into my unreality chamber.
Yeah, there's been a lot
I
of
think
buzz
it's
about it.
news, though.
Is it what is it a different take on the Civil War, that it was not about slavery, or that it
No,
was?
no, Bill,
Oh, this is now.
Oh,
This is not past history
all
Civil War.
right. So
This is
it's imaginary nonsense.
Yeah, this is
Meant
California and Texas.
meant to stoke unrest among the populace. So it's best ignored.
right, except you know, to come to Duncan's point, it's got a lot of buzz. I think it's done well at the box office, so it's touching people, and that's Duncan's point about, you know, going back to what we're seeing in Hamlet, that this is, whether we like the movie or not, this is where people's minds are at right now.
Yeah, I think that when those history plays came out, this was, you know, this was um a put upon population trying to make sense out of what the hell had been happening for decades. And so, you know, the plays were very, very popular.
Well,
So,
that's the thrust of the speaker on Wednesday. His whole thing is that Shakespeare is very much interested in power and how it's acquired and how it's used and how it's lost. And
mhm,
all of the history plays are just about that,
mhm,
as are many of his other plays.
mhm. Yep.
Okay, help me out here. Wasn't there one of those history plays put on? I'm thinking Richard II, but the mind doesn't work like it used to. I'm thinking it was Richard II, which caused actually a bit of a stir when it came out because it talks about the deposition of a king.
Right. Yeah.
Was that Richard II?
It was Richard II. Yeah.
Okay. So these were sensitive issues.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yep. Which, to go back to a session that we had was it last week we were talking about? Yeah, Christopher Marlowe and perhaps Shakespeare was making fun of Christopher Marlowe's playwriting.
Right.
And then it was pointed out that Christopher Marlowe had died before Hamlet was written. But in my viewing of the Michael Wood things, it was brought out that Christopher Marlowe was the exact opposite of William Shakespeare. Christopher Marlowe was actively involved in rebellion and sedition, and did speak quite hyperbolically.
Well, the King's Men and Shakespeare in particular, along with them, were at one time not implicated, but they were certainly questioned about what they knew about the
Essex?
about Essex and the rebellion. that he planned, because they had performed for Essex at his home one of those plays, and it might have been Richard II. I can't remember. I should remember, but I can't. So when the plot came to light, they were all questioned, and they were, let go, because they claimed to not know anything and had not to have anything to do about it. And I'm sure they didn't. But Essex, I think the assumption, or the consensus is that Essex used that play and these players to gin up his fellow conspirators, sort of to make them, feel that this was their time, this was what they should do.
I think you'll have to give us tell us a little bit more about that whole thing, for those who don't know, such as myself. So Lord Essex, or he was implicated in some sort of plot, or he
actually was executed for plotting against the Queen, thinking that that he and others were convinced that she wasn't really fit to rule and that they needed to take over, and planned a deposition of her, planned to depose her forcibly. But as you said, she had plenty of spies, and the plot was uncovered, and they were summarily executed. But the king's men were all, because they had been there and had performed for him, they were all questioned as to their part in it all, and were found to be innocent.
Okay. Got it.
All of the exact particulars, I would have to go back and reread my history. I can't remember it exactly, but
yeah,
that's the gist of it.
Okay.
1601, Bill. I just
Yeah.
Googled it, so fairly topical.
Yeah.
Shall we have Inter Polonius?
I actually read that part. So what I bequeath to Anne Doyle is that speech of Claudius, who is alone in his chamber.
Okay, right. Thanks, dear my lord, ex Polonius.
Oh, my offence is rank, it smells to heaven. It hath the primal elder's curse upon it, a brother's murder. Pray can I not, though inclination be as sharp as will? My stronger guilt defeats my strong intent, and like a man to double business bound, I stand in pause where I shall first begin, and both neglect. What if this cursed hand were thicker than itself with brother's blood? Is there not rain enough in the sweetest heavens to wash it white as snow? Where two serves mercy but to confront the visage of offence? And what's in prayer but this twofold force, to be forestalled ere we come to fall, or pardoned being down? Then I'll look up. My fault is past. But oh, what form of prayer can serve my turn? Forgive me my foul murder that cannot be, since I am still possessed of those effects for which I did the murder. My crown, mine own ambition, and my queen. May I be pardoned and retain the offence. In the corrupted currents of this world, offence gilded hand may shove my justice, and oft 'tis seen the wicked price itself buys out the law. But 'tis not so above. There is no shuffling. There the action lies in his true nature, and we ourselves compelled even to the teeth and forehead of our faults to give in evidence. What then? What rests? Try what repentance can, what can it not? Yet what can it when one cannot repent? O wretched state, O bosom black as death, O lime soul that struggling to be free art more engaged. Help, angels, make essay, bow stubborn knees, and held heart with strings of steel. Be soft as sinews of the newborn babe. All may be well. Retires and kneels.
Ooh, good reading. Good reading.
Yes.
Mm.
Wonderful land.
Unto Hamlet.
Yeah. Yeah. This is quite a speech or soliloquy by Claudius.
Go back to exactly.
Okay, so we know that Hamlet's play struck Claudius to the quick,
Mm-hmm.
and he's beyond just angry.
And this is also informing the audience of his actual guilt. That this is not just in Hamlet's mind. He's confessing to the audience.
It hath the primal eldest curse upon it.
Yes.
A brother's murder.
Cain and Abel.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But so there's some theology involved, the belief that to actually repent from your sins and be forgiven, you cannot have benefited from whatever sin you've committed. You must give all that up, and he's not about to give up the king or the kingship or Gertrude. So he says, "Yeah, I'm stuck. I'll pay for it eventually." But he still does kneel and pray.
Does say all may be well at the very end of that.
All may be well, yeah.
He's hoping for the best.
Yeah.
I'm going to bluff my way through this as best I can.
Which is a change, Donna. Those last lines, like he's taking a new direction in that speech because think what you may about him. He's hard-headedly honest about himself. He deceives everybody else, but about himself there, he's hard-headedly honest. He doesn't say, wow, the guy wasn't that good a king anyway, and he probably didn't treat his wife so well, so I kind of had to do it for the good of the state. He doesn't use any of those excuses. He just said, I did it, and I shouldn't have done it, but I'm not willing to give up the stuff. And then for the last two lines, he deceives himself.
He's struggling with his conscience, though, right through that message.
Yeah, he's almost
conscience aside, I think.
No, I don't know that he put. I'm sorry.
I didn't catch what Donna said. Sorry, Bill.
Sorry, I said, Dave, that he's struggling with his conscience right through this passage. But then I think his conscience loses the battle. And he says, it'll all be okay at the end.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly quite the same way. I mean, he's almost convincing himself that there's no use to pray because he still has benefited from this murder, and he's not.
Pray, can I not?
He cannot repent. But then, he says, "Oh, bosom black as death," and then, "Oh, limed soul, struggling to be free, art more engaged." They used to use lime to catch birds and things on sticks. And the bird would become more and more glued to the stick. Help, angels, make us say. And then he says to himself, after everything he's just said, that he can't possibly repent, he's damned. He says, bow stubborn knees, and heart with strings of steel be soft as sinews of the newborn babe. All may be well. So he's going to try.
Actually, I just look at that as if I can keep faking it.
No, well, he knows
and not react to these accusations. I mean,
no, because he can't fake it to the divine. He can't fake it to
He
God.
can't fake it to the divine, but for temporary victim, to put it bluntly, if he can get rid of Hamlet, who is the cause of this sudden contrition and awareness of he's killed his brother and it was really not a good thing to do. He's already working on his plot
But
to
no, but that's not going to change anything. If he kills Hamlet, that's not going to change his condition as in terms of his eternal soul and his, his crime. So
not
there's
in the internal sense. Okay, you're right. The eternal battle, he's
so there's
lost, but he can win the temporary thing
but
if he
but by
gets rid of
kneeling
Hamlet.
but by kneeling down to pray, he's dealing with his eternal soul. He's not kneeling down to pray in anybody's presence. He's not trying to fool anyone, and he's not trying to fool himself. He's actually thinking, well, I'll try to, depend on the mercy of God. I'll confess my sin and see what
Huh.
happens.
Okay, I have a very different interpretation of that.
He does say, but oh, what form of prayer can serve my turn? Forgive me my foul murder. That cannot be, since I am still possessed of those effects for which I did the murder. In other words, he's got the crown, he's got the queen. It's what you were saying, that you can't be forgiven if you still benefit from the crime.
Yeah,
That's what he first thinks. That's his mind at the beginning. He's saying, I did this, I can't repent. But then he says, with after O bosom black of death, he has a change of heart. He thinks, well, let me try. Oh, knees, bend these knees, get down on your knees and pray to God and see what happens. All may be well.
ah,
Now, when he says all may be well, he doesn't mean it with Hamlet. He means with
between
his
So,
him and the
the, possi
Almighty.
the possibility of forgiveness.
yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. But I'm probably because perhaps I'm a bit more cynical than you are. I'm sticking to my interpretation that he's really saying that, if I can really act as if I am not guilty of what I'm guilty of, temporarily all will be well. And I can keep the kingship, I can keep the queen, but later on I'll deal with that when I get there.
I
Or
think,
I'll be
but
dealt with later.
I mean, it can be interpreted many ways, and yours is a valid interpretation. But I just think, if that were
Mhm.
so, why would he bother to kneel and pray? He would call one of his courtiers and say, "Bring me some wine," or "Wait, bring on the dancing girls," and try to put a face on
Well, okay.
on things.
To take contemporary events though, I mean, Trump frequently makes the show of surrounding himself with preachers, and they pray together, and he's blessed, which is very effective with
But but
his
but but
followers.
yes, but the king here is not with anyone. He's in his private chamber by
Yeah,
himself, with absolutely no one to witness
yeah,
this pure state of mind. He's wrestling with his own conscience, and he has finally at the end he's decided, well, I'll give it a shot. I'll try. I'll lay my case before God and see if he can forgive me. That's the way
huh.
I read
Okay,
it.
okay,
Anyway,
yeah, and yeah, I still hesitate to interpret it that way, but you've made a good
that's
argument for it. I think that he's just been royally stung by Hamlet. That the temporary healing of his crime has been ripped off. The scab has been ripped off, and he's in temporary repentance. And that
But you have to look at the next speech of Hamlet.
Okay,
And
let's
Say,
do that.
let's read on. Yeah.
On we go.
Because I think-
Who's next, Tom?
Budgie, you or Donna, I think.
I think the current
It is-
representative from Cleveland is the
Yes, I believe so.
Yes.
okay. Enter Hamlet. Hamlet. Now might I do it pat. Now he is praying, and now I'll do it. And so he goes to heaven, and so am I revenged? That would be scanned a villain kills my father, and for that I, his sole son, do this same villain sent to heaven? Oh, this is hire and salary, not revenge. He took my father grossly, full of bread, with all his crimes broad blown, as flushed as May, and now how his audit stands, who knows, save heaven? But in our circumstance and course of thought, 'tis heavy with him. And am I then revenged to take him in the purging of his soul when he is fit and seasoned for his passage? No, up sword, and know thou a more horrid bent, when he is drunk asleep, or in his rage, or in the incestuous pleasure of his bed, at gaming, swearing, or about some act that has no relish of salvation in it. Then trip him, that his heels may kick at heaven, and that his soul may be as damned and black as hell, whereto it goes. My mother stays. This physic but prolongs thy sickly days. Exit. The king, rising. My words fly up. My thoughts remain below. Words without thoughts never to heaven go. Exit.
Very interesting.
So Hamlet sees him praying and thinks that very thing, that, well, he's praying, which means he may be confessing his sins and be absolved. And so if I kill him now, he's going to go to heaven. What kind of what kind of revenge is that?
Right.
I want him in hell where he belongs.
Mm-hmm.
So Bill,
Yeah,
this
we
is
find out.
Go ahead, Duncan. Sorry.
I was just going to say, and yet we find out in the last part of the last quote from the king, my words fly up, my thoughts remain below. Words without thought never to heaven go. So he did kneel down to pray. He probably put his hands in prayer. He started it, but he realized that he was just bullshitting himself. That he really was not repentant. Words without thoughts never to heaven go.
Yeah, so he's saying the prayers, but he's thinking about everything else. His mind is not with the prayers. His mind is on Hamlet and what he's going to do and
Yep.
all these other things.
How am I going to get rid of that boy and enjoy my goods on earth? To put words in his mouth.
So there's an interesting, to me, theological question raised here. All right. So what King Hamlet, or Hamlet Sr., if you will, had taken away from him was to live out the rest of his life. And he asked his son to do the same thing to Claudius, who was the cause of King Hamlet not being able to live out the rest of his life. So it'd be a murder for a murder. There'd be an eye for an eye. All of a sudden, we've hugely upped the ante in this scene. Because now it's not only you can't live out the rest of your life, but you need to go to hell as well. And I can see the psychological justification for it. But theologically, I think we're moving to a whole different plane here. I don't know what
No, well, I think the assumption would be that Hamlet Sr. is in hell. I mean, he talks about he has to go back and he can't tell Hamlet where he is. But the assumption is because he was not absolved, he didn't have the last rites, he was killed while he was sleeping without having repented of his sins, without having any time to repent of his sins, that he's probably in hell. So Hamlet wants Claudius in hell with him, and certainly not in heaven, having just prayed for absolution.
Could I invoke the last refuge of Catholics and say purgatory? Maybe he's in purgatory. I'll see. I'm gonna check.
Well,
I'll see what I can find here.
I think you get to purgatory if you make a perfect act of contrition before you die.
But how many do, Bill? How many do? Like if you die in battle, or if you get run over. Like I'm gonna go for a bike ride after this. If some car runs me over, I haven't been able to get to confession in the last 40 years in my case. But anyway, if I were practicing Catholic, I hadn't been able to get confession since say last Friday. I get run over by a car. There'd be a lot of Catholics who'd be going to hell in that case because the ideal thing is, I get it, Bill. Get struck by lightning as you step out of the confessional, right?
Right.
But it doesn't work that way. Anyway, I'll need to do some checking here.
Well, that's the whole argument that's made at Glasnevin in the carriage too about drowning. Bloom thinks, that's perfect death. It's so peaceful and quiet. You just die. And the Catholics in the carriage are scandalized by that because that means this guy's going to go to hell, and they believe that. So the guy that drowned, he may have been to confession the week before, but is he going to go to hell for the sins he's committed since then, or is he going to go to purgatory?
That's a good question.
I thought, Dave, that if you got the act of contrition in before you died, that you could skip purgatory and go straight to heaven.
That may be it.
Okay.
That may be it. Yeah, I suppose because the last rites, if you are absolved of all your sins, then there's no reason for you to go to purgatory to repent, to purge them.
Purge them, yeah.
Yeah. And I think we've seen that in Dante too. The people who are in hell persist in their sins. They don't, Paolo and Francesca can't give up their love for one another. They're not about to ask for forgiveness. They're just, anyway.
Actually, Bill, I just found this here. Okay, so here we're back in Act 1 where the ghost talks to Hamlet, and he says, "Cut off even in the blossom of my sin, unhoused, disappointment, unannailed, no reckoning made, but sent to my account with all my imperfections on my head. Oh, horrible, most horrible."
Yeah.
So, there we are.
So yeah, he's in hell.
Okay.
And that's where Hamlet wants to put Claudius, because that's the only real eye for an eye.
Very discouraging theology.
So then Hamlet says, "So I'll get him when he's wenching or gaming or doing some other dirty deed, which will ensure his dispatch to hell where he belongs."
But by doing that, doesn't Hamlet prepare himself for being dispatched to the same place?
Yeah.
This is cold murder.
Yeah. But I think, I don't know, maybe Hamlet, it's a difficult thing. He's being tasked to do this by his father. So what do you say? Hey, but Dad, but I don't want to go to hell, Dad. I mean, I love you. I'd like to see you again, but
not under those circumstances.
And the thing too, like I'm looking at the same speech earlier that I just read from Bill, and the guy, this is not a totally consistent ghost, because he starts out, "I am thy father's spirit, doomed for a certain time to walk the night, And for the day confined to fast and fires, till the foul crimes done in my days of nature are burnt and purged away.
Okay, so he's in
Oh,
purgatory.
so it's purgatory.
So we're kind of getting two accounts here.
Yeah, so he's in purgatory. And
So-
so Donna's point is good then, because
Right.
it's not to say that that Claudius might not go to purgatory and not straight to hell if he's absolved, if he goes to confession
Right.
and you know, is absolved, then the priest has that authority and power to forgive sins, even murder, if one makes a perfect confession, or and repents. So Hamlet would have that opportunity to repent, and maybe so at worst he would end up in purgatory, maybe, or maybe he'd go to hell. I don't know.
It's a very bureaucratic thing he has to figure out here.
Yeah,
If the crime is murder, he'd have to go to the archbishop, not the priest.
not the priest. That's right. Yeah,
He's juggling a lot of plates here.
but you know what, though, if he's the king, he can appoint the archbishop. So
Of course,
he's,
yeah.
he's got that
That's
going.
true. So he's got immunity.
He's got that guy. He's got a.
Unless you make the mistake of appointing a Thomas a Becket, Bill.
It was
Correct.
It was a perfect phone call.
I bet you our current conundrum is so happy that he got to appoint 3 Supreme Court justices at this point.
Right.
Not just happy. He's been counting on it.
Ah, the absurdity of it all.
Yeah. If it weren't so serious.
So maybe the king's beef about being killed unconfessed is that he's going to have to spend more time in purgatory than
Yeah.
would normally have been the case.
Right. Or as Dunna said, he might have avoided purgatory and gone to heaven,
Correct. Right.
if he had been absolved. If he'd had time to repent and yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Well, okay, this is totally silly, but if Claudius had killed Hamlet Sr. right after Hamlet Sr. had gone to confession, would Hamlet Sr. have been happy about that?
He would have been less upset about it. I don't think he would still have been happy about it, but he wouldn't be suffering in the flames of purgatory for an extended period of time. Who knows how long?
Okay. Well, this is a very undaunting view of purgatory that we have going on here. Because one of the interesting things about Dante's purgatory is even while the people are suffering, they are delighted to be suffering since it's purging them of their sins. I don't think anybody in purgatory actually complains about being in purgatory
Yeah, because they know they'll get out eventually.
because they know they're working their way out of it. Yeah.
Not to say they enjoy it, though.
No.
Not to say, well,
Well, Dante's people seem to, though, Bill. This is the thing.
yeah, that's actually
It's a
true.
happy place.
Right.
Yeah, torture me some more so I can get out of here quicker.
I could earn an indulgence.
Please, sir, may I have another?
Yeah, well, it really brings up a very interesting psychological and spiritual points, which is, if you know that a pain or a suffering is for a purpose, and that purpose is ultimately good, it's a different kind of pain and suffering.
That's a good point. It's why people go for surgery.
It is kind of why people go for surgery. That's kind of the earthly plane version of this. Well, all right. But we are actually up to Act 3, Scene 4. Shall we read a little bit of this and not have a discussion about it? And then next week when we meet, read it again with discussion?
That sounds good.
Okay. And let's see, am I then? So, Bill, have you finished reading?
I read enough. Somebody else can read.
Okay. All right. I'll read this time then. Okay. So, enter Act 3, Scene 4. Enter Queen and Polonius. Polonius, he will come straight. Look, you lay home to him. Tell him his pranks have been too broad to bear with, and that your grace has screened and stood between much heat and him. I'll silence me e'en here. Pray you be round with him. Hamlet. Mother, mother, mother. Within. Gertrude, I'll warrant you, fear me not. Withdraw, I hear him coming. Enter Hamlet. Hamlet. Now, mother, what's the matter? Hamlet. Hamlet, thou hast thy father much offended. Hamlet. Mother, you have my father much offended. Come, come, you answer with an idle tongue. Go, go, you question with a wicked tongue. Why, how now, Hamlet? What's the matter now? Have you forgotten me? No, by the rood, not so. You are the queen, your husband's brother's wife. And would you were not so, you are my mother. Nay then, I'll set those to you that can speak. Come, come and sit down. You shall not budge. You go not till I set up a glass, where you see the inmost part of you. What wilt thou do? Thou wilt not murder me? Help, help, ho! Polonius. What ho? Help, help, help. Hamlet. How now, a rat? Dead for a ducat, dead. Oh, I'm slain. Hamlet kills Polonius. Oh me, what hast thou done? Nay, I know not. Is it the king? Oh, what a rash and bloody deed is this! A bloody deed almost as bad, good mother, as kill a king and marry his brother. As kill a king? Ay, lady, 'twas my word. Thou wretched, rash, intruding fool, farewell. I took thee for thy better. Take thy fortune. Thou findest to be too busy is some danger. Leave, wringing of your hand. Peace. Sit you down and let me wring your heart, for so I shall. If I be made of penetrable stuff, if damned custom has not brazened it so that it is proof and bulwark against sense. Next reader, please.
Queen, what have I done that thou darest wag thy tongue in noise so rude against me? Hamlet, such an act that blurs the grace and blush of modesty, calls virtue hypocrite, takes off the rose from the fair forehead of the innocent love of it, and sets a blister there, makes marriage vows as false as dicers' oaths. Oh, such a deed as from the body of contraction plucks the very soul, and sweet religion makes a rhapsody of words. Heaven's face doth glow, yea, this solidity and compound mass with tristful visage as against the doom is thought sick at the act. Queen, ay me, what act that roars so loud and thunders in the index? Hamlet, look here upon this picture, and on this the counterfeit presentment of two brothers. See what a grace was seated on this brow. Hyperion's curls the front of Jove himself, an eye like Mars to threaten and command, a station like the herald Mercury, new lighted on a heaven-kissing hill, a combination and a form indeed, where every god did seem to set his seal and give the world assurance of a man. Next, please.
Anne, is Anne still here or is she gone? I was going to suggest we split the part.
Yeah, she's gone.
She's
Anna,
gone.
have you got a script in front of you?
Yeah.
If I do Hamlet, or you can do Hamlet and I'll do the Queen, can we just go back and forth?
Sure. Yep.
Yeah.
Which part do you want?
Well, we're in the middle of Hamlet, so shall I take that part up?
Sure, and I'll be the Queen then.
Yeah. Where do we finish?
This
Oh,
was
so
your
last
husband.
line-
This was your husband is the next line.
Mhm.
Of your husband.
This was your husband. Look you
Yes.
now.
Look you now. What follows? Here is your husband, like a mildewed ear, blasting this wholesome brother. Have you eyes? Could you on this fair mountain leave to feed and batten on this moor? Ha! Have you eyes? You cannot call it love, for at your age, the heyday in the blood is tame. It's humble and waits upon the judgment. And what judgment would step from this to this? Sense sure you have. Else could you not have motion, but sure that sense is apoplexed. For madness would not err, nor sense to ecstasy was ne'er so thralled, but it reserved some quantity of choice to serve in such a difference. What devil was it that thus had cozened you at hoodmen blind, eyes without feeling, feeling without sight, ears without hands or eyes, smelling sounds all, or but a sickly part of one true sense could not so mope. O shame, where is thy blush? Rebellious hell, if thou canst mutine in a matron's bones to flaming youth, let virtue be as wax, and melt in her own fire. Proclaim no shame when the compulsive ardour gives the charge, since frost itself as actively doth burn, and reason panders will.
Oh, Hamlet, speak no more. Thou turn'st my eyes into my very soul, and there I see such black and grained spots as will not leave their tinct.
Nay, but to live in the rank sweat of an unseen bed, stewed in corruption, honeying and making love over the nasty
Oh,
sty.
speak to me no more. These words like daggers enter in my ears. No more, sweet Hamlet.
A murderer and a villain, a slave that is not 20th part the tide of your precedent lord, a vice of kings, a cut purse of the empire, and the rule that from a shelf the precious diadem stole and put it in his pocket.
No more.
King of shreds and patches, save me and hover o'er me with your wings, you heavenly guards. What would your gracious figure?
Alas, he's mad.
Do you not come your tardy son to chide, that lapsed in time and passion, let's go by the important acting of your dread command? Oh, say. Ghost.
Does somebody want to read the part of
Do not forget, this visitation is but to whet thy almost blunted purpose. But look, amazement on thy mother sits. Oh, step between her and her fighting soul. Conceit in weakest bodies strongest works. Speak to her, Hamlet.
How is it with you, lady?
Alas, how is it with you, that you do bend your eye on vacancy, and with the incorporeal air do hold discourse? Forth at your eyes your spirits wildly peep, and as the sleeping soldiers in the alarm, your bedded hair like life in excrements stand up and stand on end. O gentle sun, upon the heat and flame of thy distemper, sprinkle cool patience. Where on do you look?
On him, on him. Look you how pale he glares, his form and cause conjoined. Preaching to stones would make them capable. Do not look upon me, lest with this piteous action you convert my stern effects Then what am I to do will want true colour, tears which perchance for blood.
To whom do you speak this?
Do you see nothing there?
Nothing at all. Yet all that is, I see.
Nor did you nothing hear?
No, nothing but ourselves.
Why, look you there, look how it steals away, my father in his habit as he lived. Look where he goes, even now, out at the portal.
This is the very coinage of your brain. This bodiless creation ecstasy is very cunning in.
Ecstasy? My pulse, as yours doth temperately keep time, and makes as helpful music. It is not madness that I have uttered. Bring me to the test, and I the matter will reword, which madness will gamble from. Mother, for love of grace, lay not that flattering unction to your soul, that not your trespass, but my madness speaks. It will but skin and film the ulcerous place, whilst rank corruption, mining all within, infects unseen. Confess yourself to heaven, repent what's past, avoid what is to come, and do not spread the compost on the weeds to make them ranker. Forgive me this my virtue, for in the fatness of these pursy times, virtue itself of vice must pardon beg. Yea, curb and woo for leave to do him good.
O Hamlet, thou hast cleft my heart in twain.
Oh, throw away the worser part of it, and live the purer with the other half. Good night. But go not to my uncle's bed. Assume a virtue if you have it not. That monster custom, who all sense doth eat, of habit's devil is angel yet in this, that to the use of actions fair and good, he likewise gives a frock or livery that actually is put on. Refrain tonight, and that shall lend a kind of easiness to the next abstinence. The next more easy, for use almost can change the stamp of nature, and either the devil or throw him out with wondrous potency. Once more, good night, and when you are desirous to be blessed, I'll blessing beg of you for this same Lord. I do repent, but heaven hath pleased it so to punish me with this, and this with me, that I must be their scourge and minister. I will bestow him, and will answer well the death I gave him. So again, good night. I must be cruel only to be kind. Thus bad begins and worst remains behind. One word more, good lady.
What shall I do?
Not this, by no means, that I bid you do. Let the bloat king tempt you again to bed. Pinch wanton on your cheek, call you his mouse, and let him for a pair of reechy kisses, or padding in your neck with his damned fingers, make you to ravel all this matter out, that I essentially am not in madness, but mad in craft. For good you let him know, for who, that's but a queen, fair, sober, wise, would from a paddock, from a bat, a jib, such dear concernings hide. Who would do so? No, in despite of sense and secrecy, unpeg the basket on the house's top, let the birds fly, and like the famous ape, to try conclusions, in the basket creep, and break your own neck down.
Be thou assured, if words be made of breath and breath of life, I have no life to breathe what thou hast said to me.
I must to England. You know what? You know that.
Alack, I had forgot. 'Tis so concluded on.
There's letters sealed, and my two schoolfellows, whom I will trust, as I will adders fanged, they bear the mandate. They must sweep my way and marshal me to knavery. Let it work, for 'tis the sport to have the engineer hoist with his own petar, and shall go hard, but I will delve 1 yard below their minds, and blow them at the moon. Oh, 'tis most sweet, when in one line 2 cracks directly meet. This man shall set me packing. I lug the guts into the neighbour room. Mother, good night. Indeed, this counsellor is now most still. most secret and most grave, who was in life a foolish prating knave. Come, sir, to draw toward an end with you. Good night, mother. Exeunt severally, Hamlet dragging in Polonius.
My goodness gracious.
That's good stuff.
Mm,
Wonderful.
much-
Thank you. That was
yeah, it is
great.
wonderful.
Thanks.
Your
Thank-
text is radically different than my text, though.
My
Huh.
type.
It's very much the same as mine.
Okay.
Mine
David,
is
how
from
about you?
1906, if that helps.
What is yours from?
1906. It says here, this is a facsimile reproduction of an edition published in 1908 by J.M. Dent and Company, London.
Huh. So Dave Little, did your text pretty much the same as Donna's?
Yeah.
Mhm.
And Katrina. Okay,
As
so I'm
Mine
the
too.
only one with the odd text.
Mine is that of the Globe edition, edited by Clark and Wright Macmillan 1900.
Huh.
that
So
beats mine.
But it's the same virtually as yours.
Yeah.
Well, it
Okay.
was no,
Oh.
it's not exactly the same because mine has some other stage business like Enter Ghost,
Right.
things of that sort that you didn't say. Maybe yours has that, but
Yeah, it's there all right, Bill. I think both Dave and I had an unwritten agreement not to mention it.
okay.
Quote-
It's one-
quote
We were
us.
leaving that to the director.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Quote
Well, I
us.
would say you're a very good Hamlet. There's only one thing I would take minor issue with, and that is emphasis at the very beginning. They're in the Queen's chamber, and there's a portrait of the brothers, Hamlet and Claudius, in her chamber. And Hamlet says, "Look here upon this picture, and on this, the counterfeit presentment of two brothers. See what a grace was seated on this brow, Hyperion's curls." And he goes on and on and on. This was your husband. Look you now what follows. Here is your husband.
Mhm.
So
Okay.
he's saying this was your husband, this good guy, and here this other guy, this is your current husband.
I'll
And
try
I
and
think,
do better next week.
well, I don't know. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a minor thing.
Well,
The only other thing I would say, I think the early on it sort of cleared up the whole succession ideal. So it's now that I understand it, at Hamlet Senior's death, Claudius inherits automatically. So
okay.
so Gertrude is no longer the queen
Ah.
until Claudius
Marries her.
marries her
Ah.
and makes her queen again. She was queen to Hamlet Senior, and then
Mhm.
Claudius becomes king by succession,
Mm-hmm.
and then Gertrude is now queen again by marriage.
Mm-hmm.
Right. With echoes of Henry VIII marrying his brother Arthur's wife, Catherine of Aragon,
Right.
which again would have been fresh in people's mind as something that didn't work out particularly well.
Yeah, that's true.
Then he turns around and says that he was never married to Catherine of Aragon.
Right.
That in
Right.
fact it was incestuous, and he
And,
committed.
and yes, and the word incestuous sheets comes up here too, Donna.
Right.
Those correct.
Yeah,
I-
and Henry VIII conveniently has an archbishop he can ask absolution from
Right.
for having committed incest.
But yet she wants him to go to the Pope,
Yeah,
and the Pope is not a fan.
no.
So thoroughly captivated by the King of Spain. I would point out that my edition here, for all its many flaws, is 1963, and among the group of five of us, it may be the most up-to-date edition.
Indeed.
I've got
Because-
the Royal Shakespeare Company edition, actually.
Okay.
And it's radically different. I mean, I've noticed some differences before, but today was like, whoa, what's going on here? So I'm gonna look at some of my other editions between now and next week, try to figure out. But there's a lot to talk about here.
That's for sure.
There is
There's a
before we
lot to talk about here. I'm, just as a preview, it seems to me that Gertrude is innocent.
right. And
Innocent of murder.
Yes.
Yeah,
Innocent of murder. She knows nothing about all that stuff.
right.
Oh.
Yeah.
And
It seems that way.
and
I think
we
it was very
discovered
helpful
that
for us to
Hamlet's
read it the way we did.
sorry, Donna, can you say that again?
Sorry, I said I think it was very helpful for us to read it the way we did. It was a good suggestion to read on and then come back to it next week
Mhm.
to
Mhm.
more detail.
We certainly discovered that Hamlet doesn't like his mom having sex with his uncle. That seems to like be really, really preying on his mind.
Yeah, he kind of has a visceral disgust about that, actually.
And I would also point out that Donna, to you, that you miss an opportunity to make a comparison with Macbeth here.
I thought of it, but I decided no, stop
Here it is,
boring
you know,
people with
What
Macbeth.
if this cursed hand, it's the king's speech, what if this cursed hand were
Yeah.
thicker than itself with brother's blood?
Right.
Is there
Right.
not rain enough in the sweet heavens to wash it white
Yes.
as snow?
Yes,
Think-
yes.
I think of the multitudinous seas in Carnadine, you know?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, it is the top of the hour, and I will exert a little bit of executive control here and say that we are done for this week. And I'm already excited about next week.
Me too. I hate to stop. I want to know
Yeah, but
what's
for
next.
sanity's sake.
I've got to go and visit my grandchildren, so I've got to go.
Okay, very good. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you,
everybody.
everybody.
Wonderful. All
Bye-bye.
righty. There we
Bye.
go.
Bye.